Hello everyone and welcome to the session on Python interview questions. If you are gearing up to dive into the world of Python or looking to nail your next job interview, you're in the right place. Today, we are tackling the hottest Python interview questions that you need to know. Python has skyrocketed in popularity due to its simplicity, readability, and vast applicability in web development, data science, artificial intelligence, and more. Whether you are a beginner eager to break into the tech industry or an experienced programmer aiming to refresh your knowledge, mastering these questions will give you a solid edge in your interviews. In today's video, we'll break down each question, providing you with clear explanation, key insights, and sample answers that will not only impress your interviewers but also deepen your understanding of Python's core concepts and its practical applications. This question is, what are the common built-in data types in Python? The common built-in data types in Python are numbers, list, tuple, string, set, dictionary, and boolean. Coming to numbers, they include integers, floating point numbers, and complex number. List, an ordered sequence of items, is called a list. The elements of list may belong to different data types. Tuple, it is also an ordered sequence of elements. Unlike list, tuples are immutable, which means they can't be changed. String, a sequence of characters, is called a string. They are declared within a single or double quotes. Set, sets are a collection of unique items that are not in order. Dictionary, a dictionary stores value in key and value pairs, where each value can be accessed through its key. The order of items is not important in case of dictionary. Boolean, there are two Boolean values, true and false. Now, moving to our next question, what are the key features of Python? Python is an interpreted language. That means, unlike languages like C and its variants, Python does not need to be compiled before it's run. Other interpreted languages include PHP and Ruby. Python is dynamically typed, which means that you don't need to state the types of variables when you declare them or anything like that. Python is well suited to object-oriented programming, in that it allows the definition of classes along with composition and inheritance. Python does not have access specifiers like C++, public, private. In Python, functions are first-class objects. This means that they can be assigned to variables, returned from other functions, and passed into functions. Classes are also first-class objects in Python. Writing code in Python is fast, but running it can be slow compared to other languages that are compiled. Luckily, Python lets you use some parts written in C to speed up things, where it is really important. A great example of this is NumPy, a tool that works quickly because it handles heavy math tasks outside of Python. Python finds use in many spheres: web application, automation, scientific modeling, big data applications, and many more. It is also often used as a glue code to get other languages and components to play nice. Moving to our third question. What are lambda functions in Python? Lambda functions in Python are small anonymous functions that can have any number of arguments, but they can only have one expression. Think of them as tiny disposable functions that you create on the fly without giving them a name. Here is the basic syntax that you can see on the screen. For example, if you want a function that squares a number, you can create a lambda functions like this. You can use square 5 to get the output as 25. Moving to our next question. Is Python a compiled language or an interpreted language? Python works in two ways, partly compiled and partly interpreted. When we run our code, Python first compiles it, creating something called bytecode. Then the Python virtual machine changes this bytecode to work properly on our computer and its operating system. Moving to our fifth question. What are Python namespaces? In Python, a namespace is like a labeled box, where Python keeps track of names you give to the things you create, like variables and functions. There are four types. Built-in namespace holds all the default stuff in Python. Next is global namespace, where things you create in the main part of the program go. Third, enclosing namespace. If you have functions inside other functions, the inner functions can access the outer function stuff. Fourth one is local namespace. Inside a function, Python creates a separate box for its stuff. Think of namespaces as organized boxes, where Python stores your stuff based on where you create it. It helps Python keep track of everything you have made. Moving to our sixth question. What are local variables and global variables in Python. Moving to global variables, variables declared outside a function or in a global space are called global variables. These variables can be accessed by any function in the program. For example, you can check this code. This code initializes a global variable x to 0, then uses a function increment to increase its value by 1. By employing the global keyword, increment modifies the global x, ensuring it affects the variable globally. The program first prints x as 0, then calls increment, and then prints the updated value of x as 1, demonstrating how a global variable can be modified and accessed throughout a program. Coming to local variables, any variable declared inside a function is known as local variable. This variable is present in the local space and not in the global space. For example, you can check this code. In this example, the local count is a local variable defined within the showCount function. Each time showCount is called, local count is initialized to 0, incremented by 1, and its value is printed. The local variable scope is limited to the function in which it is defined, so it gets reinitialized with each function call, demonstrating how local variables maintain their scope and are not preserved across function calls. Moving to 7th question. What is self in Python? Self represents an instance or object of a class. In Python, it is explicitly included as the first parameter, but in Java, it's optional. It serves to distinguish between a class methods and attributes from local variables. In the init method, self points to the newly created object, while in other methods, it points to the object that called the method. Moving to our next question, how are arguments passed? By value or by reference in Python? In Python, arguments are passed to functions by assignment, which is often described as pass by object reference or pass by sharing. This means that the function receives a reference to the actual object, not a copy of the object. If the object is mutable, changes made within the function can affect the original object. However, if the object is immutable, it cannot be changed within the function. Any attempt to modify it will result in the creation of a new object, leaving the original unchanged. Moving to our 9th question. What is a pass in Python? To pass signifies executing no action or serving as a placeholder within a compound statement. It essentially indicates a blank space where no specific action is required or written. You can check this code. In this code, the do nothing function uses the pass statement as a placeholder, indicating that no action is taken when the function is called. The pass statement is useful in scenarios where a statement is syntactically required but you don't want any command or code to execute, effectively serving as a do nothing operation. Moving to our 10th question. What is a dynamically typed language? Dynamically typed languages are languages that do not require any predefined data type for any variable as it is interpreted at runtime by the machine itself. In these languages, interpreters assign the data type to a variable at runtime depending on its value. Moving to our 11th question. What is PEP? PEP stands for Python Enhancement Proposal. It is a set of rules that specify how to format Python code for maximum readability. Moving to our next question. What is Python path? It is an environment variable that is used when a module is imported. Whenever a module is imported, Python path is also looked up to check for the presence of the imported modules in the various directories. The interpreter uses it to determine which module to load. Moving to the next question. What are Python modules? Name some commonly used built-in modules in Python. Python modules are files containing the Python code. This code can either be a function class or variables. A Python module is a .py file containing executable code. Some of the commonly used built-in modules are OS, sys, math, random, datetime, and JSON. Moving to the next question. What is break and continue in Python? The break statement is used to exit the loop prematurely when a certain condition is met. The continue statement is used to skip the current iteration of the loop and continue with the next iteration. You can check this example. In the first loop, when I equals 3, the break statement is encountered and the loop exits. In the second loop, when I equals 2, the continue statement is encountered and the loop proceeds to the next iteration without executing the print statement for 2. Moving to the 15th question. Can we pass a function as an argument in Python? Yes, in Python, you can pass a function as an argument to another function. This is possible because functions in Python are first-class objects, meaning they can be treated by any other object such as an integer, string, or list. You can assign them to variables, store them in data structures, and yes, pass them as arguments to other functions. Check this piece of code. In this example, shout and whisper are functions that are passed as arguments to the greet function. The greet function then calls the passed-in function with a name argument, demonstrating how functions can be dynamically passed around and invoked within Python. Now, moving to our 16th question, what does hash symbol do in Python? Hash is used to comment on everything that comes after on the line. Hash symbol in Python is used to denote comments. For example, hash, this is a single line comment in Python. This line is not being executed when the Python runs the code. Moving to our 17th question. What is type conversion in Python? Type conversion refers to the conversion of one data type into another. Int converts any data type into integer type. Float converts any data type into float type. ORD converts characters into integers. Hex converts integers into hexadecimals. Oct converts integers into octal. Tuple, this function is used to convert to a tuple. Set, this function returns the type after converting to set. List, this function is used to convert any data type to a list type. Dict, any function is used to convert a tuple of order key value into a dictionary. Str, it is used to convert integer into a string. Moving to the next question. What is docstring in Python? In Python, a docstring is a string literal that occurs as the first statement in a module function, class, or method definition. Its purpose is to provide documentation about the object such as its purpose, usage, parameters, return values, and other relevant information. Docstrings are typically enclosed in triple quotes and can span multiple lines. They serve as a form of inline documentation and are accessible throughout the object's doc attribute. Docstrings are essential for code readability, maintainability, and understanding as they help developers and users to understand how to use and interact with the code effectively. Moving to the 19th question, what is slicing in Python? Slicing is used to access parts of sequences like tuples and strings. The syntax of slicing you can see on the screen. With start, end, step. This step can be omitted as well when we write start, end. This returns all the elements of the sequence from the start, inclusive till the end -1 element. If the start or end element is negative I, it means that the ith element is from the end. The step indicates the jump or how many elements have to be skipped. Moving to the 20th question. What is pickling and unpickling? The pickle module accepts any Python object, converts it into a string representation, and dumps it into a file by using the dump function. This process is called pickling. The process of retrieving original Python objects from the stored string representation is called unpickling. Now, let's move to the intermediate level questions. Explain inheritance in Python. Inheritance allows one class to gain all the members, say attributes and methods of another class. Inheritance provides code reusability and makes it easier to create and maintain an application. The class from which we are inheriting is called a superclass, and the class which is being inherited is called the subclass or child class, or it is also known as a derived class. There are 4 different types of inheritance supported by Python: single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and multiple inheritance. When it comes to single inheritance, where a derived class acquires the member of a single superclass. Multi-level inheritance. A derived class C is inherited from base class B, which is derived from class A. Hierarchical inheritance. From one base class, you can inherit any number of child classes. Coming to multiple inheritance, a derived class is inherited from more than one base class. Does Python make use of access specifiers? Python does have mechanism for controlling access to attributes and methods of objects, but it does not have explicit access specifiers like some other programming languages such as Java or C++. In Python, attributes and methods can be accessed freely from outside the class definition unless you explicitly make them private. Conventionally, attributes or methods that start with a single underscore are considered to be protective, meaning they should be accessed only within the class or by subclass. Attribute or methods that start with double underscore are considered private and are name mangled, meaning the names are changed to include the class name, making them harder to access from outside the class. Discuss different ways of deleting an element from a list. There are two ways in which we can delete elements from the list. One is the remove function and one by using the pop function. Let's check the remove function first. The remove function deletes the mentioned element from the list. The pop function deletes the element mentioned at specific index from the list. How are classes created in Python? In Python, classes are created using the class keyword, followed by the class name and a colon. Inside the class, methods and attributes can be defined. The init method is a special method called a constructor used for initializing newly created objects. Here is a basic example. In this example, my class has two attributes, attribute 1 and attribute 2, and one method as my method. The self parameter is a reference to the current instance of the class and is used to access variables and methods associated with the current object. Moving to the next question. Write a program in Python to execute the bubble sort algorithm. Bubble sort is a straightforward sorting algorithm that repeatedly steps through the list, compares adjacent elements, and swaps them if they are in wrong order. The pass through the list is repeated until the list is sorted. Although it is not the most efficient algorithm for the large datasets, it's a classic example for learning sorting algorithm. Let's check this example to understand bubble sort. We have a list of numbers. Here in iteration 1, first the sorting will compare 11 and 7. We can see that 11 is larger than 7, so a swapping of the positions are being done. Similarly, the bubble will move forward and it will compare 9 and 15. Since 9 is already smaller than 15, there will be no change. And similarly, the process will go on. After that, for the iteration 2, we have 11, 7, 9, 15, 23, 21 and 26. Again, the same process will continue. The number of iterations will take place until we have a fully sorted list. Over here, you can check the code for bubble sorting. The program first defines a bubble sort function that takes a list array as its parameter. It then uses two nested loops to traverse the list and compare each pair of adjacent elements. If a pair is in wrong order, either the first is greater than the second, the elements are swapped. This process repeats until the entire list is sorted. Finally, the program demonstrates using the bubble sort function with an example list of integers and print the sorted list. Write a code snippet to generate the square of every element in a list. If you want to generate the square of every element in a list, you can use list comprehension in Python, which is a concise way to create lists. Here's a simple code snippet to achieve that. The code takes each number in the numbers list, squares it, and then the squared value are collected into a new list called squared number. When you run the code, it will give the output as 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25. Moving to the next question. Write a program to produce the Fibonacci series in Python. The Fibonacci series is a sequence of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, usually starting with 0 and 1. Here is the code, and let's understand how it works. We first start with the first two Fibonacci numbers, which are 0 and 1. Then, in each iteration, starting from the third term, we calculate the next Fibonacci number by adding the last two numbers in the series. We append the new calculated Fibonacci number to the list. We repeat this process until we have generated n terms in the Fibonacci series. Finally, the program takes user input for the number of terms and prints the Fibonacci series up to the number of terms. What is the difference between a shallow copy and a deep copy? The difference between shallow copy and deep copy is primarily about how they handle these nested objects. A shallow copy creates a new object, but instead of copying the nested object, it just copies the references to them. This means that the original and the copy will share the same nested objects. Changes to the nested object in the copied object will affect the original object and vice versa. However, changes to the container object will not affect the other. You can create a shallow copy of an object by using the copy method. A deep copy creates a new object and recursively copies all the objects it contains. Unlike a shallow copy, the copy and the original do not share any nested objects. Changes made to any level of the copied object will not affect the original object and vice versa. You can create a deep copy of an object using the copy module's deep copy function. Write a program in Python to check if a sequence is a palindrome. A palindrome is a sequence of characters which reads the same backward as forward. Examples of palindrome include words like radar or level, or numbers like 12321, or sequences of characters that form the same sequence in reverse. To determine if a sequence is a palindrome in Python, we can write a function that compares a sequence to its reverse. If the sequence matches its reverse, then it's a palindrome. This program defines a function is palindrome that takes a sequence as input and returns true if the sequence is a palindrome and false otherwise. It works by first converting the sequence into a list to ensure the reverse operation works uniformly across different types of sequences like strings and tuples. Then it compares the original list with its reversed version to determine if the sequence is a palindrome. Moving to our next question. How is multithreading achieved in Python? Multithreading allows different parts of program to run simultaneously, making the program faster and more responsive. Multithreading in Python is achieved using the threading module, which provides a way to create and manage threads. Threads are smaller units of execution that runs concurrently within a process. Python's threading module allows you to create multiple threads, each performing different tasks simultaneously. Here is a simple example demonstrating the usage of multithreading in Python. In this example, we create a subclass, myThread, of threading.thread and override its run method with the code we want to thread to execute. We create two instances of myThread, start them and wait for them to complete using the join method. Meanwhile, the main thread continues to execute. This program will output the message from both the threads concurrently. How is memory managed in Python? Python utilizes a private heap space to store all objects, with the Python memory manager overseeing different aspects of this heap, including sharing, caching, segmentation, and allocation. Control over the heap remains solely within the Python interpreter, leaving users with no direct access or influence over its operation. Whenever Python exits, why isn't all the memory deallocated? Python does deallocate most memory upon process exit. But there are scenarios where memory may not be immediately reclaimed due to the factors such as garbage collection overhead, external resource management, and memory leaks. However, from the perspective of the operating system, all memory and resources allocated by the Python process are eventually reclaimed when the process exits. Now, if you want to know more about garbage collection overhead, external resource management, and memory leaks, then you can refer our Python programming certification course, the link to which is in the description box below. Which is faster, Python list or NumPy arrays, and why? NumPy arrays are faster than Python list for numerical operations. NumPy, an open source library designed for array manipulation in Python, furnishes efficient functions for numerical computations on arrays. The swiftness of NumPy arises from its implementation in C, which facilitates quick executions compared to Python list. Python list being implemented in Python, an interpreted language, lack the speed advantage of NumPy arrays operations, which is executed in a compiled language. What is the process of compilation and linking in Python? In Python, compilation and linking process are somewhat abstracted from the developer due to the nature of the language being interpreted rather than compiled. However, there are still compilations and linking processes that occur behind the scenes when working with Python modules, especially those containing C extensions or when used external libraries. Coming to compilation, for pure Python code, there is no separate compilation step. Python code is compiled to bytecode by the Python interpreter when it is executed. However, when using Python modules containing C extensions, there is a compilation step involved. These C extensions need to be compiled into machine code that can be executed by the computer's processor. Compilation of C extensions is typically handled using a compiler such as GCC on Unix-like systems or MSVC on Windows. Moving on to linking. After the compilation of C extensions, the resulting object files need to be linked together to form executable files or shared libraries. During the linking process, references between different object files are resolved and necessary libraries are linked to the final executable or library. Linking is handled by the linker, such as ID on Unix-like systems and link.exe on Windows. How to add new column to pandas data frame? Adding new column to pandas data frame is being demonstrated in the following code. The code import the pandas library to create a data frame from the dictionary that maps first and second to the pandas series with specified indices, resulting in different lengths and NN for missing values. It then adds a third column to DF using a new series with values 10, 20, 30 indexed by A, B, C. The attempt to add a fourth column aims to the sum of the first and the anonymous reference into third, which would sum values from the first and third columns. The code imports the pandas library and creates a data frame from the dictionary data info that maps the first and second to pandas series with specified indices, resulting in different lengths and NN for missing values. It then adds a third column to DF using a new series with values 10, 20, 30, indexed by A, B, C. The attempt to add a fourth column aims to the sum of the first and an anonymously referenced info third, which would sum values from the first and third columns. The code concludes by printing df after each column addition, demonstrating how to dynamically expand a data frame. Now, let's finally move to the advanced level interview questions. And here it comes the first question from advanced level. Write a code to sort an array in NumPy by the n-1th column. You can sort a NumPy array by the n-1th column using the numpy.arg sort function to obtain the indices that would sort the array along the specified axis. Here is how you can do it. The column will output the original array and the sorted array based on the n-1th column. Firstly, it selects the last column of the array. Then, it returns the indices that would sort the last column of the array. ARR sorted indices uses the sorted indices to rearrange the rows of an array based on the sorting from the n-1th column. How do you compute the Euclidean distance between two series? To compute the Euclidean distance between two series in Python, you can use the scipy.spatial.distance module, and here is how you can do it. In this code, we import numpy as np and the Euclidean function from the scipy.spatial.distance. We define two sample series, series 1 and series 2 as numpy arrays. We use the Euclidean function to compute the Euclidean distance between series 1 and series 2. Finally, we print the computed Euclidean distance between the two series. How do you get the items not common to both series A and series B? To get the items that are not common in both pandas series A and B, you can use the pandas.series.isn method combined with Boolean indexing. This method allows you to filter out the items present in one series but not in other. You can then concatenate the unique elements from both series to get the full list of items that are not common to both. Here is how you can do it. The script performs the following step. Firstly, it uses a.isnb to find elements in A that are not in B, and vice versa for b.isn A. It then concatenates the result not in B and not in A into a single series containing all unique items not common to both original series. Finally, it prints out the concatenated series containing the items that are not common to both A and B. The result will be a series containing all the items that are unique to each series, effectively showing the items not common to both A and B. What is Flask, and explain its benefits? Flask is a micro web framework written in Python. It is classified as micro because it is lightweight and requires minimal setup to get a simple application up and running. But it is also extensible enough to support complex applications as well. Flask provides the tools, libraries, and technologies necessary to build a web application. This framework allows you to build web applications rapidly with minimum lines of code. It is a modular and flexible design, making it adaptable for developers to tailor the applications with the required components. Coming to the benefits, firstly it comes simplicity. Flask, straightforward and easy to understand syntax makes it accessible for beginners. The framework is easy to set up and get started with, which is ideal for small projects or when learning web development basics. Then it comes to flexibility. Unlike more comprehensive framework that dictates specific ways to achieve tasks, Flask is unopinionated about how the things should be done. This flexibility allows developers to use the components they prefer and structure the application in the way that works best for them. The third one is lightweight. Flask does not automatically include tools and libraries that your project may not need, making it very lightweight and efficient. Its simplicity and lack of overhead make it a performant for many types of objects. Then it comes to extensibility. While Flask is minimalistic out of the box, it can be easily extended with a wide variety of extensions available for tasks such as validation, user authentication, database integration, and more. This means you can start simple and add more functionality as needed. Lastly, it comes to the robust ecosystem. Despite its simplicity, Flask is supported by a large and active community. There are numerous extensions and packages available that can help to add functionality to Flask applications quickly. Is Django better than Flask? Django and Flask both serve to translate URLs or web addresses inputted into browser into Python functions. Flask offers a more user-friendly experience than Django, but it requires you to define more details yourself, as it provides less out-of-box functionality. On the other hand, Django automates many aspects of web development, reducing the need for manual configuration. Django comes with pre-existing code that users need to understand, while Flask gives users the flexibility to write their own code, potentially making it simpler to learn. Each framework excels technically and comes up with its unique strengths and weaknesses. What is the use of sessions in Django framework? In Django framework, sessions are used to persist information across user requests, enabling the server to remember data about a user's activity and preferences. The mechanism is crucial for functionalities like user authentication, where sessions keep users logged in as they navigate different parts of the web application. Sessions also store user preferences or shopping cart contents, enhancing the user experience without compromising security, as the data is stored server-side. Django simplifies session management by providing a secure and customizable system that can use various backends to store session data, making it a powerful tool for developers to maintain the state and user-specific data efficiently. Write a one-liner that will count the numbers of capital letters in a file. Your code should work even if the file is too big to fit in the memory. So first, let us check how normally the code would look like. In this code, we open the file file.txt in read mode. We iterate through each line in the file using a for loop. For each line, we iterate through each character using another for loop. We check if each character is uppercase using the isUpper method. If a character is uppercase, we increment the count variable by 1. Finally, we print the total count of capital letters in the file. Now, the equivalent one-liner. This one-liner does the same thing as the previous code, but is written in a condensed form using list comprehension and the sum function. It iterates over each line and the character in the file, checks if the character is uppercase, and sums up the count for the uppercase. Discuss Django architecture. Django follows a model view template architecture, which organizes web applications into three main layers: model, view, and template. The model layer represents the application's data structure and interacts with the database using Django's object relational mapping, which is also called as ORM. Model defines the data schema, including fields, relationships, and behavior, allowing developers to work with database records as Python objects. The view layer handles the application's business logic and user interaction. Views receive HTTP requests, process data from the model layer, and generate HTTP responses. They encapsulate application logic, handling tasks such as data retrieval, processing, and rendering. Views interact with the model layer to retrieve or modify data and use templates to render dynamic HTML content for the user. The template layer manages the presentation of the data to the user. Templates are HTML files with embedded template tags and filters that generate dynamic content based on the data passed from the viewer layer. Django's template engine supports template inheritance, reusable templates, and powerful template tags for processing data and rendering HTML output. List out the inheritance styles in Django. In Django, there are three main ways models can inherit from each other. The first one is abstract-based classes, the second one is multi-table inheritance, and the third one is proxy models. Coming to abstract-based classes, think of abstract-based classes as templates for other models. They don't create their own tables in the database. Instead, they're like blueprints that other models can use. You mark a model as abstract by setting a special attribute to true in the model's meta class. Coming to multi-table inheritance is when you create a new model that is based on the existing one, and each new model gets its own table in the database. Django makes separate tables for each new model, and these tables are linked together. This type of inheritance lets you add more features to an existing model without changing it directly. To use multi-table inheritance, you just make a new model class that is based on the existing one. Coming to proxy models are like shadows of existing models. They have the same fields and methods, but you can change how they work in Python without affecting the database. They don't create new tables, they just act as alternative views of the original data. Proxy models are handy for adding extra functionality or organizing code without changing the original database structure. You can create a proxy model by setting a special attribute to true in the model's meta class. These different ways of inheritance gives you flexibility in how you organize your models and customize their behavior in Django. Each one has its own purpose and advantages, depending on what you're trying to do with your models. Create a program to add two integers greater than 0 without using the plus operator. You can add two integers without using the plus operator by using bitwise operations. Here is a Python program to add two positive integers without using the plus operator. This program defines a function add without plus that takes two integers a and b as input and returns their sum without using the plus operator. It uses bitwise operations such as AND, XOR, and left shift to perform addition bit by bit. The program prompts the user to enter two positive integers and then displays their sum. How to save an image locally using Python, whose URL address I already know. To save an image from website using Python, you need to know the web addresses of the image. With Python, you can use a library called request to download the image from the internet. Then you can store it on your computer, and here is how you can do it. We use the request library to fetch the image from the web addresses you provide. If the image is successfully downloaded, that is status code 200, it gets saved to your computer with the name you choose. If there is any problem with the download or saving process, the program will let you know. You are required to scrap data from IMDb top 250 movie pages. It should only have fields, movie name, year, and rating. To gather information from IMDb's top 250 movie page, you will need Python and some tools like Request and Beautiful Soup, and here is how you do it. We import the necessary libraries, Request for getting web data and Beautiful Soup for sorting through HTML. We define a function scrape IMDb top 250 to fetch IMDb's top 250 movie pages. Pick out the movie names, years, and ratings and return them as a list of dictionaries. Inside the function, we use request to get the IMDb page and Beautiful Soup to handle the HTML content. We loop through the table rows on the page, extracting movie details from the appropriate cells. We remove any extra spaces and formatting from the extracted data and store it in the dictionaries. Finally, we call the function to get the data and print out the movie titles, years, and ratings. How to send an email in Python language. Sending an email in Python can be done using the built-in SMPT-lib library for SMTP, which is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and email library for composing and formatting email messages. Here is a basic example how to send an email in Python. Firstly, we imported SMTP-lib and relevant classes from email.mime module. Set up the sender's email addresses, receiver email address, and email password. Then we created a MIME multipart object to compose the email message. Set the sender, receiver, and subject of the email. We created the body of the email messages and attached it to the MIME multipart object. Then we connected to the SMTP server. Log in to the sender's email using SMTP authentication. Then we send the email using sendMail method of SMTP server object. Then it handled exceptions and closed the connection to the SMTP server using the quit method. Create a program to convert dates from year, month, day to day, month, year. You can achieve this conversion using the datetime module in the Python. Here is a program to convert dates from the format year, month, day to day, month, year. We define a function convertDate that takes a date string in year, month, day format as input. Inside the function, we use datetime strptime to pass the input string into a datetime object, specifying the input format. Then we use strftime to format the datetime object into a string with the desired format. We handle the case where the input string is not in the correct format by using try except block. Finally, we test the function by taking user input for a date string and printing the converted date. How you can get the Google catch age of any URL or web page. To find out how old a web page is in Google Catch using Python, you can send a special request to Google Catch server. And here is a simple way to do it. We create a function called getGoogleCatchAge to find out the age of a web page in Google's caching. We send a special request to Google Catch URL for the web page we are interested in. We analyze the response from Google to extract the age of the cached web page. If everything goes well, we return the catch age, otherwise we show an error message. Finally, we set the function by asking up for a web page URL and printing out the catch age information. With this, we have come to the end of this session. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and keep learning.